The next item that we were dealing with is the Governance and Audit Committee self-assessment and knowledge skills.
Yeah.
Joan.
Thank you, Chair. So a self-assessment questionnaire based on the SIPFA checklist was circulated to members of the committee to assess the existing skills, knowledge and areas of expertise of members and identify any gaps or training requirements. Although membership of the Governance and Audit Committee has changed since the time the self-assessment questionnaire was sent out, 7 responses have been received, and I have sent it more recently to try and capture some of the newer members. The self-assessment questionnaire is attached to Appendix A and shows that 10 statements were considered. Appendix B summarises the responses across the 10 statements, as well as the additional comments received. The results indicate that Governance and Audit Committee members have an overall sound basis of knowledge and experience in the areas of responsibility for this committee. The questionnaire also asked members to indicate what knowledge and skills they had which would add value to the committee. The responses are illustrated in Table 1 within the report and shows there is an experience and knowledge at varying levels across all key areas. All of the information will be used to inform a training programme. It is proposed the following areas form a basis of the programme, noting that this is a live document and will be subject to review by the committee on an ongoing basis. The areas that have been identified from this exercise are financial management and accounting, risk management, counter-fraud, council performance self-assessment and complaints handling. So, as I said, this will be a live document and subject to your consideration today, we can put forward a training plan. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Joan, and again, thank you for your hard work in putting this together. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from anyone? Councillor Granville.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Joan. Would it be more prudent, Joan, for all of us, even though we've done a lot of training, all of us come in and do these training pods together, so we're all learning the same thing instead of differently, so we've got a bigger field of what we're looking at as training, and we can then go forward. Then if you want to specialise in something, then you can go forward and say, I want to specialise in X, Y and Z, and then you can move forward in that part. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, certainly that will be taken into consideration, and that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I think inviting everyone in who may wish to come in, that would be a good idea. Martin.
It's just to check, did the survey include allow for the change of membership, or was it based on the old one? Yeah, and just a general point, 7 out of 12 isn't good, is it? You know, we should really be making sure that we get 100% response. So I leave that thought with you, Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, I did send the original questionnaire February time, but I have sent it more recently, so some of the newer members have had an opportunity as well.
Lovely, thank you very much. Any other questions? Legacy hand, is it, Martin? Okay, any comments? No, got the recommendation then. Obviously, Joan will put together a training plan and a package with colleagues as well in regards to those areas, because it needs some input from other teams of individuals. So I think we note the self-assessment questionnaire feedback information and request that Joan put together a learning development package for the committee. Yeah. Someone move, please.
I'll formally move that, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder? Oh, thank you. Anyone against? No. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Governance and Audit Committee Annual Report 23-24. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. This is the, as you say, Governance and Audit Committee Annual Report. So I pulled it together on behalf of your, as the Chair and members' behalf for 23-24. It's a requirement of the Local Government and Election Act that you as a committee need to do an annual report and present it to Council for approval. So this report sets out your compliance with the legislation, both the Local Government Measure and the Local Government Elections Act, and your terms of reference, which is set out in the Constitution. It is a draft report stage, Chair, so I'd certainly welcome comments from yourself and from members. If you could get those back to either myself or Joan within 2 weeks, that would be really helpful, and that will help us formulate the final report, which we could then push forward into to council. So in terms of compliance with the acts, the committee is now called Governance and Audit Committee, which is appropriate. It now consists of lay members and council members, and the proportion is correct, with the chairperson being the lay member. For 23-24, there were 3 out of the required 4 lay members on board, with 8 elected councillors on committee. That situation has now been addressed, Chair, and you now have a full complement of lay members for 24-25. And there were a number of committee meetings held during the municipal year. In terms of the report, I've tried to put together your expectations in terms of the terms of reference, which are set out in terms of reviewing and approving the draft financial statements, the final financial statements, the annual governance statement, which you've done this morning already, an overview of the council's internal audit function, and we regularly report into you, the review of the external audit team and the reports that you receive from them, from Audit Wales, a consideration of the effectiveness of risk management, and also to oversee the council's corporate performance assessment and the arrangements for handling complaints. So in the following paragraphs, Chair, I don't intend going through that in any detail, but it does give you a reflection of the reports that you've received, the comments you've made as a committee, the work you've undertaken, and covers all the aspects in terms of the terms of reference. You've demonstrated that you've certainly challenged officers in the appropriate way and asked for further clarification as the reports have been presented into you, and asked for further assurances that improvements will be made moving forward. And various heads of service and directors have attended during the course of the year. We also demonstrated that there's been an improvement in some of the audits that we've followed up, where they were limited previously. Subsequently, due to action from the committee, there's been a significant improvement in the overall control environment. As Joan's mentioned, we've also undertaken a self-assessment of the skills and knowledge of members, and that's been reported separately, but it's a positive feedback we've had. Members feel as though they've got good knowledge to support the committee moving forward, and certainly did so in 23-24. So in conclusion, the Governance and Audit Committee has complied with the legislation. It's complied with its terms of reference. You have demonstrated that you've held senior management to account for making improvements in the control environment, challenged officers, and sought clarification and progress reports to obtain the assurances required. So the Audit Committee is in a good place. And obviously from the members' self-assessment, you feel as though you've got the appropriate skills to enhance and add value to the committee. And as Joan said, based on that feedback, we'll provide a training programme moving forward to further that knowledge and experience. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think of all the committees that I sit on, I think this one probably demands the most research and diligence, and I think each of the committee members puts in a great deal of work. So I think that ought to be recognised, if only that the names of the committee members are listed. I think it's good as well. I think when you read the report, if you see names, I think it just gives that additional meaning. I appreciate that this isn't something that's going to be published and circulated widely in the community. It's a report principally for council. And so in that respect, we need to keep a sense of proportion about it. But I think what council will be interested in as well, in addition to the self-assessment, is that assurance about our lay membership, who I know to be professionally qualified and come in with a range of skills and experience. If we maybe could have just a pen picture of each of them, I think that would be particularly meaningful for the council. So, okay.
Thank you for that, Martin. You happy with that, Andrew?
Yes, Chair, we could certainly pull that together, yeah.
And Councillor Griffiths first. You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. Builds a little bit on what Councillor Hughes said then, which is that the experience, the breadth of experience of our non-member members of the committees, especially yourself, Chair, have broad experience of other councils, and I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you actually do this role for other councils as well, and therefore I wondered, was there extensive discussion with yourselves as lay members to input into this annual report, and if not, shouldn't there be something which actually builds on your experiences for us to know how we can do better?
If it's a question for me, yes, Andrew sent me the draft report and I've provided some comments already in regards to it. And obviously it's only right and proper that it came to the committee for everyone in this room to provide any comments or points they wish to raise on it. And again, once that document is formulated, then it will need to come back to here for sign off, and then it will go to council. I think the point that Councillor Hughes made, whilst it's a document for council, there is a publicly obtainable document. So, you know, I fully take on board what you say, Martin. Points I've made to Andrew is we need to emphasise these limited assurances and such like, where we call directors and heads of service in, and what improvements have been made. So, you know, service delivery may have changed or whatever has changed. So it proves to some extent that this is being taken seriously for the benefit of the county borough, apart from all the statutory requirements we've done and those referrals we made to scrutiny committees as well. So all in all, it sort of embraces it. And again, it is a learning exercise for us all. You know, I say to people, every day is a school day. I'm picking up Councillor, yes, Councillor Griffiths. I chair 2 other governance and audit committees as well. So I think, you know, in my view, this committee's moved forward a great deal. You know, but I think the lay members provide a different set of dynamics. They're not elected representatives, but again, they're looking after the best interests of the county borough. And again, introducing the call-ins, which I don't think has ever been done before. You know, it concentrates the mind. But as I said, we're not here to criticise the officers. You know, we're to provide some constructive basis for what's said and to improve. And it's that continuous improvement agenda against the backdrop of severe financial restraint. So I think we understand, and it's that balancing, isn't it? So yes, I do. Councillor Griffiths, as I said, I do chair 2 others. So we're going through the similar process in one of the other councils, and we will be, which Andrew services as well. And again, I've got just to say, I'm going to another governance and audit committee a little later on this afternoon to chair that as well. So, yeah, so there we are. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chair. I won't ask you to rate the 3, but thank you.
That's okay. Colin?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to say a comment. Pleased to see that complaints is moved from ad hoc, don't want to jump again, but into our future forward work programme has gone to annually, and I think we're seeing it at the next meeting. So that's good. I couldn't really fully understand why we were looking at complaints in more depth, because as that box we looked at earlier on that Biden referred to is clear there at the bottom that complaints is one of our responsibilities. Thanks, Chair.
No worries. Okay. If there are no other comments or questions, can I ask that if members have got any observations or comments on this draft report, if you could let Andrew have them by the 10th of October. So that would be greatly appreciated if you've sort of got any ideas about how it could be improved or added to, if you could let Andrew have them by the 10th of October. and then obviously Andrew will bring them back to the next meeting of governance and audit, certainly picking up points Martin's have raised and others. So thank you very much for that. So the recommendation is, I think we note the contents of the draft Governance and Audit Committee Annual Report 2023-24. We provide any comments of this committee members to Andrew by the 10th of October, and that Andrew bring the report back to us at the next Governance and Audit Committee. Someone prepared to move?
I'll formally move, Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Thank you very much. Anyone against? Nope. Thank you very much. Next item is the Forward Work Programme. Deb?
Yes, thank you, Chair. For the recording, I'm Deborah Exton, Deputy Head of Finance. Standing agenda item, which the committee receives every meeting, just to update on the Forward Work Programme for the remainder of the municipal year. The purpose of which is to identify reports and issues being brought back to committee at the future meetings to enable committee to ensure that they're fulfilling the roles, a number of which are set out in paragraph 2.1. The full Forward Work Programme for the remainder of the year is attached at the appendix as it stands, and it is a live document. We do update it as we go, and those proposed agenda items for the next meeting at the end of November are set out in the table in paragraph 3.2. So just to take you to the recommendation that the committee considers and approves the updated Forward Work Programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deb. Richard?
Thank you, Chair. Can you just indulge, Chair? Looking at the Forward Programme, I've got a problem with that. What I've got a problem with is the size of documents that are coming to this committee, right? And I go along with what you're going to say here, Gareth, right? I think we should have perhaps 1 or 2 meetings extra a year to reduce the number of sizes coming to this committee, so we can go into it in a bit more depth. If people have got questions, sometimes we rush these and we don't ask the appropriate questions, right, because of the time. But that's all I'm suggesting to you, Gareth. I'll go along with whatever you say, Chair. But I think that's coming from myself.
Well, obviously, it's not a decision for me, but and I don't know what the Constitution says. My view, Colin and I have had long discussions about this. He bends my ear nearly every committee in regards to the size of the agenda. I think this is rather a big one. This meeting in November. When we look at it, we've got the audited statement of accounts, which obviously, hopefully, would just be I'm not saying a rubber stamp, but, because it's going to be dealt with. We've got the annual self-assessment of council's performance. I was in a council the other day and it took an hour to deal with it. And I'm not saying we're going to take an hour to deal with it here, but that took an hour. We've got the call-in of the director in regards to parking and such like. We've now got the governance and audit annual report that's got to be added in as well. Together with some of the other issues. Can I ask the officers to just have a look at that, if you would, because I do agree. I think sometimes doing a meeting of 3 hours plus isn't given any value to it whatsoever. And in some respects, a meeting over 2 hours in sometimes doesn't do justice to the item if you're going to discuss it at length. So whilst we've got the complaints process as well, and we're going to be looking presumably at the number of complaints coming into the authority, how they've been dealt with, the ombudsman's letter and such like. So I think, can some thought just be given to that, or the only other way I would deal, unless you, the other way I would deal with it is that I adjourn the meeting at some stage and say we come back in. I know some of these items are time critical. I understand that, Gareth, and I think they are, like the annual statement of accounts are time critical because presumably you're going to take them to council the next time. So can you just have a look at that and maybe deal with the big items? So put the big 3 items on this agenda and then have another meeting maybe within a couple of weeks to deal with the other lesser items.
We can certainly go away and look at which are the really time critical ones in November and which are the ones that may not be time critical but they will take time to do, and come back and maybe liaise with you, Chair, about what's doable and what's not doable.
It's not my decision, it's a committee decision in reality, but I would support that because I think you need to give some of these matters some time rather than rush it. And we've all been in committee meetings, haven't we, which have gone on and on and on. If your matter's right at the very end of a long committee meeting, it's likely to go through. And I don't mean unkind, I don't mean to be unkind, but that's what happens because people haven't got the time and effort anymore. They want to get home and have their supper or their tea or whatever. So, am I telling tales out of but that's the way I see it. And if you can look at it, Caris, the time critical ones, let's do, say, on the 28th of November, and then maybe have one either after that or those non-critical items before it. Do you know what I mean? Can you look at that?
Chair, can I just qualify now then? We are the committee. Does the committee decide that, or did officers decide that? Can we have that clarification? Because we're elected here as members, right? Officers here to serve.
The way I'm reading it is if you've got concerns that you have a lot of, and I appreciate a lot of chunky items, technical items, and they're too much for us to deal with properly in one meeting. Yeah. What I'm taking away from this is you want us to go away and look at how we can actually make this more manageable for you, and that's about managing the agendas and whether or not actually we need more meetings or it's the way we're handling the agendas, but it's to enable you to engage better with it. Yeah? Absolutely. Spot on. And we need to liaise with Democratic Services, because if we're looking for extra dates, but we can do that as officers. That's fine.
As Caris before, Colin. Councillor Martin Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I think both you and Caris will know what I'm going to raise. I raise it every meeting. It doesn't seem to get anywhere. I still would like to see a full review of our management of the capital programme on the forward work programme. It's 2.5 years before the next elections. It would be amazing if we could do that before then. Many thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Williams. I had your email yesterday, which was clarifying what you wanted us to deal with. I know that work is being done by internal audit in relation to capital, and work is also being done by external audit in relation to some commissioning. What I wanted to do was try and bring together when they're likely to report and mirror them against the request that you've made, Councillor Williams, and then look at a suitable time when we can bring that into I think it probably does come into GAC. We have to formulate a report to bring in to reassure you really that what the process is and whether or not it's being adhered to. So I will look at that now as we're looking again at the forward work programme.
Any other questions? Councillor Griffiths? You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. That's a habit of mine. I have heard from somebody that there's an audit work going on into delegated powers and the way that they work within the organisation. Is that the case? And when will that be on the forward work programme, please?
Yes, there is. I don't want to steal Caris's thunder here, but there is an Audit Wales report on decision making in respect to this authority. I don't think it's a thematic report, is it? So it's in respect of this authority. That's coming to this committee. Well, it would be in November. So that's coming in November. There are other issues which I am aware of, which I've got some queries on in due course. I've spoken off the record with Caris and with Andrew about some of the issues that have been raised in regards to use of delegated powers. But clearly, let's get the decision-making report before us, and then we can open up that line of inquiry at that meeting. And if it is coming in November, it will need some time to be dealt with. Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to clarify, though, it's not so much the length, because obviously they are lengthy. It's unlike the other committees I sit on. It's the complexity and the sheer quality of the data involved. And, we want to do right by the information provided to us, and we want to do right by the officers and the subject. So we're just asking really for a bit more time to focus on that complexity. And we want to do it Right, yeah. So that's why we're asking really for that, as Gareth said, either extra meetings or split it up or whatever. But, you know, considering what's just been said in terms of the potential for another audit, that audit report to come before us, as well as the complaints issue, which I think considered to be really important for this council, because complaints tell you so much about how organisation functions. I think it's really important that we split up the agenda to accommodate that, the need for focus and attention, as well as our time and our brain cells. Thanks.
I think the officers have got that message, but we can put a recommendation in, apart from we note the forward work programme and the additional matters that come in, that the proposed agenda for the 28th of November be split into 2 meetings at the very least, and that Democratic Services provide it. Well, we've got one date anyway, haven't we? We've got 28th November, but provide us with another date, and that the officers prioritise what needs to come to the 28th November meeting, and then the less urgent items come to a separate meeting within a couple of weeks. Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay, so the recommendations are, we note obviously the forward work programme with the additional items of the annual report, which Andrew will provide, the call-in of the director in regards to car parking, and the second one is that committee requests that the meeting be split into 2, the 28th November meeting be split into 2, and the officers formulate the appropriate agendas for those which are of priority and those which can be dealt with a little later on, but those meetings, if possible, be held within 14 days of each other. If that can be done, Caris, within the timescale of Democratic Services.
I was going to say I'd need to liaise with colleagues in Democratic Services about availability.
Well, if it can be done within 14 days, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone prepared to move, please?
Formally move with the amendments, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Granville, a seconder. Thank you. Anyone against? No. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is urgent items. The only issue I wanted to raise, it's not a formal urgent item. Clearly, when we now call in the directors and the heads of service, if they come in, the likelihood is that as a part of the ongoing performance and improvement agenda, that I will request that the cabinet member come in as well, because obviously the cabinet member takes responsibility and accountability for the services they actually responsible for. That's why they're paid a salary. So the likelihood is in the next meeting, when we have the director in for car parking, we'll have the cabinet member in as well. Okay, on that note then, everyone's gone very quiet. Oh, Biden?
I just wanted to on the previous report where Rhonda signed staff has removed themselves from the audit arrangement. I don't think it was actually mentioned. And because the point is that there was no reason given, right? I know that we're actually looking at a lot of collaboration across the local government, but it would still be good to know why they decided to pull out of that arrangement.
That's in regards to the regional audit service.
Yeah.
Can we deal with that outside the meeting? Because I'm sure that Andrew and the team can deal with that and let people know. Okay, on that note then, can I firstly thank everyone, the members, any members, but we're all one, for their contribution today. Can I thank the officers for their input and stay in power, given that we've been in here 2 hours, 48 minutes. And thank you for your contribution. I think the discussion and debate has been really important. The meeting's now closed, and see you on the 28th of November. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you,
All.
Chair.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you all.